Ecuadorian presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio was assassinated in Quito on Wednesday night, with elections looming. And that's the topic of LATAM this week. Hello and welcome to another edition of LATAM This Week. I'm Euan Marshall, the Deputy Editor of the Brazilian Report, and I'm joined today by Lucas Berti, our Latin America reporter. Hi Lucas, how are you doing?
Hello Euan, thanks for having me.
And just before we get underway into this shocking topic, the news that's been coming out of Ecuador this week, I'd just like to quickly urge our viewers to sign up to the Brazilian Report, which is the journalistic engine behind these videos and our Explaining Brazil podcast. And, you know, we're an independent media outlet. We cover Brazil and Latin America. But as we're independent, we're supported by our subscriptions. So please do support us, check out our work, and check out our subscription page, because we've got lots of different tiers of memberships, and definitely there's going to be something that that fits into your pocket there. So please do check that out at brazilian.report/subscribe. Now, let's just get right into this, Lucas, because, I mean, this is a breaking news story all over Latin America. And in our Latin American newsletter, published yesterday for our premium subscribers, you said that Ecuador's violence problems could throw up some surprises to the country's snap elections. And that proved to be morbidly prescient just hours later, didn't it? Tell us what happened.
Yeah, and for sure. I guess our readers have all the reasons to sign up for our Latin American weekly newsletter, because yes, violence could be a tiebreaker for the elections in Ecuador that are going to happen on August 20. And well, we had like the biggest of the examples happening this week. The case that happened in Ecuador was the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio, a 60-year-old presidential candidate. He was shot dead in broad daylight in the capital Quito, shortly after leaving a building during a campaign event in the capital. And well, he was killed by an unknown gunman. We don't know exactly who ordered the killing, but this unknown gunman who killed him was also killed by security guards shortly after the attacks, inside one of the headquarters of the Ecuadorian prosecution office. And well, we had the footage of the attacks went viral on social media, because one of the friends of Fernando Villavicencio recorded by the exact time when the candidate entered a car and was attacked by multiple shots. And well, this is just one out of many examples of what is happening in Ecuador right now, because Ecuador is passing through its worst period of violence in history. We must remember that last year, Ecuador broke records of homicides. In terms of homicides per 100,000 inhabitants, Ecuador broke its records, all-time records. And this happens mostly due to advance of drug cartels that don't no longer find space to expand in Colombia and Mexico, two major hubs of drug trafficking in Latin America, and they are now going to the Andes. So in addition to Ecuador, violence is also increasing fast in Chile, which was once one of the safest countries in Latin America. So this is the heart of what is happening now in Ecuador.
Yeah, great, Lucas. Yeah, so we'll go into more like the kind of the wider context of Ecuador in a moment. But just first, who was Fernando Villavicencio? I mean, you know, some people who are kind of casual observers of Latin America might know a couple of the candidates. But, I mean, Villavicencio, maybe he wasn't one of the most known candidates. How does he fit, or how did he fit into the current electoral landscape?
Well, Fernando Villavicencio was not known very much for his political career, because he was, since 2021, serving as a lawmaker in Ecuador. But after, in May, President Guillermo Lasso dissolved Congress, he was taken out of his job. But he doesn't have a solid political career. He was mostly known for his work as a journalist. He holds a contundent flag against corruption in Ecuador. It's interesting because Fernando Villavicencio declares himself a left-wing leader, a left-wing person, left-wing politician, but he's also very much a person supporting, for example, the car wash operation in Latin America, which was an anti-corruption operation that haunted a lot of left-wing leaders in Latin America. And we have examples in Peru and also in Brazil that this operation had some political bias. But Fernando Villavicencio, he was very supportive to the car wash operation, and is one thing that can position Fernando Villavicencio in the political spectrum is that he had some critics both against President Lula and former President Jair Bolsonaro. So he's a left-wing guy, but with some of this, with the heart of in the anti-corruption operations. And Villavicencio was one of the founders as well of one of the strongest political parties in Ecuador, which is the Pachakutik, an indigenous party. And so during the 90s, Fernando Villavicencio was one of the founders of this party. And because he was born in a context, in a rural and poor context. So he says that he, throughout his career as a journalist, he's very aware of the necessity for which indigenous and poor groups in Ecuador passed throughout history. So, well, during the 21st century, he became a notorious opponent and adversary of former President Rafael Correa. He became one of the most renowned names of the anti-Correísmo, the movement which was opposing to the political group led by President Rafael Correa. And well, this time, Fernando Villavicencio, he was trying to use a share of his popularity to run as a candidate. And according to the most recent polls in Ecuador, we had something like 24, 25 different polls since the beginning of these early elections, the campaign of these early elections. And Villavicencio was mostly appearing in the fourth position. But since the voting intention in Ecuador is very much fragmented, he indeed had a chance to go into a runoff in October. So he has a chance of being the second most voted. So, well, we can say that the assassination of Villavicencio was something that is highly impacting the electoral process in Ecuador.
No, yeah, for sure, especially if this is someone who potentially even had a chance of getting a second place. But so what's the response been? Like, are these elections going to go ahead? Is it safe to have an election in Ecuador at the moment?
Well, after the assassination, we have some those standard procedures. President Guillermo Lasso, who is polling very bad, and he, like few people in Ecuador approve of his tenure. And President Guillermo Lasso, he obviously condemned the assassination. And after that, he also announced 3 days of official mourning in Ecuador and announced a state of exception of 60 days. And personally, for me, as a reporter covering Ecuador since 2019 at the Brazilian Report, it seems to me that this wave of violence in Ecuador makes every president issue a different decree of state of exception every week. This is happening a lot in different occasions. But we are yet to see what is going to happen in Ecuador, because President Guillermo Lasso, he said that this new state of exception issued this after the assassination took place to ensure that the elections are going to happen. But well, we don't know if the woman who was alongside Villavicencio running as his running mate, Andrea Gonzalez, a notorious environmentalist in Ecuador, if she's going to replace him as a candidate. And well, we don't really know what's going to happen, because the violence is there. We have soaring violence, but we know that leaders they usually don't want to face this kind of events by giving up. So I guess President Guillermo Lasso, by issuing this decree, he sends a message to gangs and to drug cartels that elections are going to happen anyway. But we are yet to see what's going to happen the coming days.
Yeah, kind of the show must go on sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
The army in the streets. Yeah, very fascinating. So just quickly before we get back into kind of the wider context in Ecuador and just why we're having elections, I would just want to remind our viewers again that these videos and our Explaining Brazil podcast are all powered by the Brazilian Report, independent media outlet. We cover Brazil and Latin America, and definitely you should check out our work and our coverage of Latin America, which for our almost completely Brazilian-based outlet, we cover a lot of ground on Latin America thanks to Lucas here. And you should definitely check out our website, Brazilian.report/subscribe, because we rely on your subscriptions to keep us independent and allow us to continue to cover Latin America at such a broad scale. We've got several different, subscription options there of different price levels, and we've got different offerings, things you can kind of pick and choose in there. You can see which subscription would fit you best. So please do check that out, Brazilian.report/subscribe. And also, if you already subscribe to Brazilian Report and you want to support us even further, or if you're not ready to buy a subscription now, but you'd like to find a different way to support us, you can also check us out on Buy Me a Coffee, which is where it's basically our kind of donation platform, where you can help us by buying us coffee to fuel our journalism. As you know, good journalism requires an awful lot of caffeine. And on Buy Me a Coffee, you can send us individual donations of as many coffees as you'd like, or also you can send us a kind of a fixed monthly amount to join our Buy Me a Coffee community, which gives you a bunch of extra goodies there, which includes a shout out on our podcast and lots of kind of behind the scenes newsletters and inside info and like extra podcast, that sort of little thing. So yeah, please do check that out. That's buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian Report. And we've also got the little QR code in the corner of your screen there, which you can check that out to check out our Buy Me a Coffee page. Right, so yeah, just getting back to this, Lucas, you mentioned at the start of the show about the really kind of pressing violence problems in Ecuador at the moment, and this just being the latest incident. And what has really been a terrible last few years when we look at the statistics. So you mentioned that you touched on it briefly before, but where is this violence problem coming from? Why has it gotten so bad?
The thing is, when you think of violent countries in Latin America, you usually think of Haiti, of Colombia, or in Mexico, or even El Salvador back in the years, and Honduras is mostly the Central American countries. But well, Ecuador is taking all headlines in the last few months and last few years because of the soaring violence there, and mostly because of the advance of drug cartels. They are fighting for territory in and outside prisons in Ecuador. So besides the rise of urban violence in Ecuador, with an outbreak of violence in Guayaquil, a port city in Ecuador, the second largest city in Ecuador as well, we have a lot of episodes of massacres inside Ecuadorian prisons. As we covered here at the Brazilian Report, we had, over 400 deaths of inmates inside Ecuadorian prisons, because those penitentiaries, those prisons are filled with people representing different gangs. And we have both those local gangs that are growing fast, and also we have the spillover of notorious drug cartels that are entering in Ecuador right now. Fernando Villavicencio, for instance, shortly before being killed, he told that he was being threatened by the notorious cartel of Sinaloa, which is a Mexican cartel. So there's also links that a few weeks before the assassination of Villavicencio, we had the assassination of the city mayor of Manta, also a port city in Ecuador. And some people said that, some people close to Villavicencio said that the death of this mayor of Manta was linked to this Manta mayor's support to Villavicencio. So maybe these crimes can be connected, and all these crimes can be also connected to the advance of the cartels, who might be masterminding behind those crimes. So this is what happened in Ecuador now. And as I said before, Ecuador broke records of homicides last year. They had the country's highest rates of homicides per 100,000 people. They have a lot of political violence. They have a lot of violence in the prisons. People are scared. There was also a recent poll, a recent survey, and Ecuador is right now the country in Latin America where people feel most insecure because of the urban violence. So it's sad, because Ecuador was not known in comparative terms, like compared to other Latin American nations. Ecuador was not known for being this kind of country, and unfortunately, the country became now an example of how violence could reshape not just the society, but also electoral process and also people's daily life.
Yeah, and I mean, just showing that graph there that was on the screen for a while. That was you can just see how dramatic that spike is. Oh, there we go. There we got it again. Yeah, superb. So just to kind of circle back a bit then, as I promised we would kind of explain this, why are we having elections at the moment in Ecuador? And why is the current president, Guillermo Lasso, not running?
Well, Guillermo Lasso was elected during the pandemic in 2020, and he's more of like a business-oriented center-right person, a former banker. But well, as soon as he started his term in Ecuador, he had a lot of different problems because, well, we had a pandemic, which boosted inequality, poverty, and he also faced a lot of different national protests led by indigenous organizations in Ecuador. And well, after reaching low approval rates, Guillermo Lasso was also facing some risks of being impeached. Some impeachment votes was orbiting him. And by May this year, already badly approved by voters, Guillermo Lasso was fearing to be impeached. He ignited a constitutional article in Ecuador, created in 2008, which allows him to dissolve Congress for the price of losing his job as well. So he's legally forced to hand over his job in 6 months. So that's what happened in Ecuador right now. This constitutional article is called in Spanish muerte cruzada, which is called mutual death. So he dissolves Congress, the opposition-run Congress that is threatening him, but he also has to hand over his job in 6 months. So that's why Ecuador, because Ecuador was originally expected to hold elections in 2025, but so they have to conduct these elections now in advance. So we have the first round now in August 20, and in case we have a likely runoff in October 15. So well, besides the violence, the electoral process happening in Ecuador right now is the product of another electoral crisis. So a lot of things are happening in Ecuador at the same time. So now Guillermo Lasso has just a few months left ahead of the presidency, and he has to deal not just with the fact that he's going to hand over his job in advance, but also the fact that the electoral process in Ecuador is surrounded, is kidnapped by high violence figures.
Yeah. And so how does then what happened yesterday, the assassination of Villavicencio, how does that change things then in the polls ahead of August 20 when we're going to have that first round vote? If, as you mentioned before, he has a running mate, if that running mate was to step in and be the main candidate, would they have a chance of winning, do you think?
I guess not, because according to 24 different polls they're being released since the dissolution of the Congress back in May, Luisa Gonzalez, who is the candidate representing the movement of former President Rafael Correa, the Correísmo, Luisa Gonzalez, she's leading. She's the most likely person to win the first round. But as I said before, since the vote is very fragmented in Ecuador, we most likely will have a runoff on October 15 with Luisa Gonzalez and another person. And so one thing is interesting, though Fernando Villavicencio mathematically had chances of going to a runoff, he was not the most favorite one to pick the silver medal in the first round. And well, since the violence is on a rise in Ecuador, one of the things that we wrote in our Latin American newsletter this Wednesday is that this could boost the campaigns of people who are like more security-oriented, more right-wing persons. And one of them is Jan Topic, Ecuadorian businessman, a millionaire businessman who is linked to the business of security. And he's running he's ahead of a coalition which is called Ecuador Sin Miedo, or Ecuador Without Fear, which is centered, has the heart in battling crime. So well, if you put all the pieces, you see that we have Luisa Gonzalez, which is a popular candidate representing a former president, which is Rafael Correa. But well, in case Jan Topic reaches the runoff, the second run in Ecuador, he can use his tough on crime agenda as ace up on his sleeve. So maybe the assassination of Villavicencio doesn't change much of the electoral scenario ahead, but we can be sure that the assassination itself, yet a new episode of violence, could also be something that can boost the campaigns of more right-wing persons.
No, yeah, definitely. Okay, Lucas, thanks very much for that. That was really insightful, and this is something that we're going to be focusing on quite a bit over the next couple of weeks as we get more information about the crime itself that happened. There's a lot still to be cleared up there, and of course, on the 20th of August, we will have the first round of the Ecuadorian elections. So, yeah, Lucas Berti, our Latin America reporter, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Euan. Thanks a lot. This month, we also have elections in Guatemala, the runoff in Guatemala, and we have the PASO, the primary elections in Argentina. So, well, Latin America, a lot of things are always happening in the continent.
Yeah, and our premium subscribers will have already, they already know all about these elections because of our Latin American newsletter that we sent out yesterday. So yeah, just one last reminder before we go: subscribe to the Brazilian Report, which is the journalistic engine behind these videos, these series of videos, and also our Explaining Brazil podcast. We run on subscriptions, so check out our subscription page, see what kind of fits your fancy and fits your budget. And also, if you want to support us even further, you can check out our Buy Me a Coffee page, which is buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian Report. And that would help us buy us a coffee to kind of fuel our journalism, because we need a lot of caffeine to do all this work. With 3 elections in the space of a week, right, Lucas? That's a lot of caffeine. Okay, so thanks a lot for joining me, Lucas, and thanks for watching. And we will see you again very soon. Goodbye.